for doing work, we need energy. Okay, where do we get from this energy? So we need energy for all our activities since we wake up and since till we go to bed. We do a various number of activities. For each and every activity, we need some amount of energy. Okay. So we need energy for our activities, not only for that, we also need energy for other different activities like cooking food, okay, driving a car, any other thing like this. So we not only need energy for our bodily activity purposes, body activities purpose, but also for other various activities which we do with other objects or things. So we need different amounts of energy for all these purposes. We need energy in different forms. Okay, whatever the energy we take for our body to do our daily routine activities, normal course, that is different from the energy what is required to drive a vehicle. Okay, so the energy what is required to have an entertainment in radio or television is different again. Okay, the energy what we use for cooking our food is different. It is in different forms. Okay, not only one form of energy, we can use different forms of energy for cooking. Okay, in the olden days they used to cook on, say, burning the wood. Okay, then they get used to coal or charcoal. Then came different gaseous forms of energy. Now they can use electricity as a source of energy for cooking food. Okay, so we have different forms for a single type of activity. Also for different activities we require different forms of energy. So we need energy from a particular source. So to get energy from a source, we take different sources. So the source which gives us energy is called a source of energy. Like different activities are there, we have different sources of energy. Some were used since old days. Okay, so like different lifestyles have been changing since olden days to the present. Okay, so as these types of energy also having changing. The change is constant. We do see changes in every day, in every walk of life. Okay, so similarly we have different sources of energy emerging, new sources of energy or new forms of energy are being emerging day by day, and some of the old forms of energy were becoming extinct. We are discarding those sources of energy, obviously for a good reason. Okay, so now today we will discuss about different sources of energy. What was the transition from the olden days to the present era? Okay, how these different forms of energy have been evolving, or they have been changing in different times, or even though we are using the same different old forms of energy, how new techniques being used to improvise them. Okay, so first of all, to understand what is a source of energy is defined as a source which gives us energy, or a source from which we gain energy. Okay, so when we list out different forms of energy or different sources of energy, okay, different sources of energy when we list out, we get n number of sources. Like, say, we can take wood, we can take coal, we can take charcoal, we can take petroleum. In that again, we have different allied things of petroleum like petrol, diesel, coal tar, naphtha, etc. All these are the byproducts of petroleum. Okay, and again we have electricity, we have a water as a source of energy, we have wind as a source of energy. Okay, ultimately we have sun as a source of energy, solar energy. Okay, we trap the solar energy and use it for different purposes. So when we check out a different source of energy, they may be, some sources of energy have some advantages and some other have some disadvantages. So when we pick out a source of energy for a purpose, okay, we need to check the purpose and then pick out what is the suitable source of energy for the same. So we can consider coal as a source of energy, fine, but can we use coal for our vehicles, driving a scooter or a bike? Not possible, right? So we use petrol for running the vehicles or diesel for running the vehicles, depending on the type of the engine what is being used over there. Okay. At the same time, can we say, can we use petroleum or petrol for cooking our food instead of kerosene? Definitely not. It's quite dangerous, right? So we need to have a purpose or choose the type of the environment or the device what is being used. What is our purpose? In what way we wanted to, for what activity we want to use the source of energy. First you choose the activity and then correspondingly you choose the source of energy. So whatever may be the source of energy, when we list out the characteristics of sources of energy, a good source of energy, what should we have as a good source of energy? When we list out an activity and when we choose an activity and then go for a particular source of energy, then we can figure out what is a good source of energy and what is it not. So what should be the good qualities of a source of energy? Okay. So we use LPG in our homes for domestic purposes. So can it be rated as a good source of energy or not? So the thing is like, when we have different sources of energy, first, are they accessible, easily accessible, or are they not? Can they be easily transportable? Is it safe or easy to transport, say, petrol from one vehicle to another vehicle? Can we do like that? It's hazardous, right? So there are certain aspects. First thing is, for easily accessible, a good source of energy. For a good source of energy, so it should be easily accessible. First point. Okay. So we should not go about and search where we will have a good source of energy or something like that. Suppose you imagine there is a large amount of gas available, natural gas available under the say oceans. Is it easily accessible? Say, let us say, I'll say Antarctica. In Antarctica, I have a good source of energy, like under the deep oceans. Okay, I have a good amount of gas. So is it easily accessible to go and dig out there and then transport it to this particular place, our place where we use it? So it's not easily accessible, right? So a good source of energy must be easily accessible. Second thing is like, it should be easy to store. So storage is as important as accessing. Okay, just imagine, can we store petrol in a water bottle or water tin? It's not right, good. It's not good and it's not safe, right? We cannot put petrol and in a lidless vehicle and keep it like that for use. Okay, storage is very, very important, easy to store. Okay, next point is like, it should be easily transportable. From one place to the other place. Okay, it should be easily transportable. Can you imagine LPG being served to your homes in tankers? No, right? So we have an LPG cylinder which is filled with LPG in a refilling plant, and then that particular cylinder is being served to you, okay, for domestic purposes. So even then a lot of care should be taken while transporting these things, because it's a gas, it's a liquefied petroleum gas, it's compressed, okay. So it should be easily transportable. Actually, it's like economical. It should be economical. It should not be too costly. It should be easily economical. Okay, economical in the sense, so less price, for a less price. It should be affordable to pay. Okay, and above all these things, one more important factor is like large energy per unit volume, and this is an important factor to be considered. Why? Because even though it is economical, okay, if you are not able to get a large amount of energy per unit volume or unit mass, whatever we consider, it is waste for us. I may say that wood is available at a lower cost, okay. So we can't, and wood is easily available. It is not dangerous to transport wood from one place to the other place. Maybe we can transport it in a truck or a small van, mini van, whatever it is. Whatever the wood we require for our daily usage in cooking purposes. Okay. So when I take an activity of cooking, I may have different types of sources of energy, like starting from wood and coal, kerosene, LPG, electricity, like this. Okay. So wood may be cheaper than the others, and it may be easily transportable. Okay. It may not have any hazards in transporting from one place to the other place. It's easy to handle, fine. But if I burn 1 kg of wood, and how much amount of energy I am getting out of burning a unit mass of the fuel, mass of the wood, okay. So is it sufficient for my daily use? If at all I wanted to use for 1 month for daily usage purposes, if I am using an LPG cylinder, I may get hardly for 25 days or 30 days, or depending on your usage, it may last up to say 2 months or 3 months also, depending on your usage. Okay. If at all, assuming that, okay, you will use LPG cylinder for 1 month, a normal domestic LPG cylinder for 1 month. If I wanted to substitute that LPG cylinder with wood and use wood instead of LPG for your normal routine purposes, how much amount of wood will you consume? Okay. So LPG cylinder at one corner you will place. So equal amount of, if you wanted to equal amount of energy supplied, whatever the LPG cylinder, whatever the energy you are getting from one LPG cylinder, total energy for your 1 month of usage. Okay. So if you want an equal amount of energy from wood, how much would you require and how do you store it? Okay. So how many times you need to transport that to your home from your shop? So all these are the questions. Why? Because the amount of energy per unit mass or volume what you are getting from wood is much less compared to that of LPG. So these are the reasons. So these are the various points to be considered to be considered that as a good source of energy. So a good source of energy must be having produce large energy or volume per unit mass, large energy per unit volume or mass, and it should be easily accessible, it should be easily storable, it should easy to transport from one place to other place, and also it should be more economical. So these are the important points to be considered while considering a source of energy as a good source of energy or not. Okay. Now we'll discuss different types of sources of energy. Any source of energy, if we consider, can be broadly be classified into two types. One is conventional source of energy, and another is non-conventional source of energy. So what do we mean by conventional source of energy, and why do we call it as conventional sources of energy? We'll discuss now. Okay, so when we list out this conventional source of energy, like we have some fossil fuels, okay, fossil fuels like we have coal, petroleum, natural gas, all these things will come under fossil fuels. Okay, we have thermal power plants, basically when we say fossil fuels, you know what is a fossil, right? So it is the remaining parts of the dead animals or plants or tree. Plants means trees, okay? So which are buried under different locations, conditions, okay? Which are buried and they are formed like that, okay? From fossils, basically from fossils, what are the fuels? When we say fuel, when you use the word fuel, it is very important to differentiate it from, in general, a source of energy. Like all fuels can be considered as sources of energy, but all sources of energy cannot be considered as fuels. A very, very important point to be noted, this one. Why? Because when I say source of energy, anything which supplies energy can be considered as source. I can say sun as a source of energy, I can treat water as a source of energy, a wind as a source of energy, okay, and wood, trees, coal, petroleum, natural gas, electricity, all these will become sources of energy. But when I say fuel, a particular amount of a particular form of energy is being produced from fuel, that is only heat or thermal energy. So any source of energy which gives heat on combustion can be considered as a fuel. Okay, so we also have nuclear fuels. So where the process is different of production of heat, we may not be using what you call coal or other source of energy for burning and producing heat. Okay, we are using nuclear sources. That is what nuclear fuels. Okay, so fuel is something which gives heat on burning. Okay, which gets combusted and then produces heat. So that source of energy we will be calling it as a fuel. So when I say fossil fuels, we will get coal under the fossil fuel, we will get petroleum and natural gas. Broadly these three we will be getting. So under the fossil fuels we have coal, we have petroleum, and we have natural gas. These three things we have. Coal is obtained from dead remains of the plants or trees, which are buried under a certain type of conditions. it is preheated. It is heated, the buried part of the tree trunks are heated in the absence of oxygen. Okay, we'll call it as anaerobic heating. Okay, without, in the absence of oxygen. Okay, anaerobic combustion. Like then that particular wood is being converted to coal. So coal basically, different types of coals are also available. Okay, each coal depending on the percentage of carbon in it. Basically, all the coal is hydrocarbons. Coal is made up of hydrocarbons, hydrogen and carbon in main. Okay, so depending on the carbon content, we have different types of coal, starting from say peat, lignite, anthracite, and so on. Out of these different forms of coal, different types of coal, we have anthracite is the best quality coal wherein you have nearly 90% of carbon. Okay, 90% of carbon is available in anthracite. Anthracite being having 90% coal, 90% of carbon in it, anthracite. Other types are like peat is there, bituminous coal, and lignite. These are the different types of major types of coal. So if we list out, so we have peat, lignite, bituminous coal, and anthracite. So this is the coal having nearly 90% of carbon. Okay, so I think peat or bituminous coal, out of these two, they will be having the, one of these things will be having the least percentage of carbon in it. And based on your purpose, the type of coal will be selected. And mostly the coal is available in between sedimentary rocks. Okay, so why sedimentary rocks? Because coal is formed between two sediments. So once the trees are buried under sediments, they are preheated in the absence of oxygen, and then they are converted to coal. Okay, when you look for petroleum, this word petroleum consists of two words. One is petro and oleum. Petro refers to rock and oleum refers to oil. So basically, we mean to say petroleum like oil from rocks. Okay, so the oil which is found in between rocks, that is the main meaning of a petroleum. Okay, so these two are derived from Greek letters. Oleum is oil and petro is rock. So petroleum, we have different byproducts actually, starting from petrol, diesel, naphtha, kerosene, and several byproducts. And each of these, we'll call it as crude oil also. Instead of petroleum, there is another name called in usage, that is called crude oil. Okay, so we'll take out each of these components like petrol, diesel, kerosene, naphtha, etc. Okay, each of these components we will extract from petroleum using different processes. Like say, in briefly to say, like a fractional distillation process. When we wanted to separate two or three components from a mixture, okay, so which can be taken out at different temperatures, extracted at different temperatures in vapor form, and then again condense them to form to the liquid states. So the method we use there is called fractional distillation. In the same way, we get different components from this, like using the fractional distillation process. And another fossil fuel is natural gas. So natural gas is also available in nearby petroleum. Wherever you have petroleum deposits, there is a possibility that we will have some natural gas at that particular location. Okay, so generally being gas which is found at the top layer, and below the gaseous layers we have like petroleums available. Okay. There is also a possibility where natural gas is available independently in the without existing of petroleum beneath it. Okay. So when I say natural gas, there also we have different components in natural gas. LPG is one particular component like of natural gas where we not LPG. LPG is different and natural gas is different. Sorry for it. And they will have different categories in natural gas. They extract it, and we do use natural gas for our vehicles, like they call it as CNG, compressed natural gas. Okay, so you compress the natural gas under certain conditions and then try to put it in a liquid form and then use it for vehicles in transportation. Similarly, we use LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, that is a full form of LPG. So the gas, we don't use gas in its own form. We compress it under certain conditions so that it is converted to liquid form. So whatever the cylinder you are getting, in that cylinder, whatever the gas is available, it is in the liquid form. Okay. So there are different categories, like for domestic purpose, they produce one type of cylinders, and for commercial purposes to be used in hotels and all those things, they have a different categories of cylinders. Okay. So generally the LPG cylinder which is supplied to homes for domestic purpose, it will have a net weight of say 14.2 kg. Okay. Means 14.2 kg of gas is being supplied in the cylinder. So gross weight up to say 16 point some kg. Okay, 16.2 or 16.3, some approximately that much amount of mass of the total gross weight, and net weight will be around 14.2 kg, which is used for cooking purposes at home, domestic purposes. So like compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas. Liquefied is also, it is liquefied, it is not, cannot be compressed, it is liquefied, converted to liquid, and then filled into the cylinder for your purpose. Now, when we go for power plants, thermal power plants, even in thermal power plants also, they use conventional fuels, conventional sources of energy. Okay. So when you say conventional source of energy, why do you call it as conventional? That is important. Conventional in the sense, like it is used since ages as a traditional source of energy, right? Initially they used to use wood as a source of energy. So burn logs of wood and then develop, combust it, produce fire, and using that heat you use it for cooking purposes or something like that. Okay, then came coal. So coal is also taken from the earth. You extract the coal from the coal mines, either open cast or closed mines, whatever it is, and then use them. So as we discussed, depending on. So basically in thermal power plants what they do is, they wanted to produce electricity. Power plant is producing electricity. For producing electricity, they generally make use of turbines. Okay. To run the turbine is a generator sort of thing. So to run the turbine, they use steam. And where do the steam get from? Steam is nothing but water vapor. So you have water, you heat water, convert water to water vapor, okay, and then that steam you produce it in a pressure type of thing. You generate steam under pressure and then use it for running the turbine. Okay. So again, coming to the basic point, like how do you heat water over there? Okay. So when you heat water, when you wanted to use some fuel for heating water, it is again the conventional sources like coal and other things, or diesel from petroleum products. Okay. So whatever you use it for heating water, produce steam, and then use that steam to run turbines and then generate electricity. That is being used in, that is the process going in power plants, thermal power plants. So when I say thermal power plant, basically you use heat energy to generate electricity, and that heating is done by burning the conventional fossil fuels, okay, and then using the heat to produce steam. This is about conventional. Now when I using conventional sources, why do you go for non-conventional or alternate source of energy? We are used to the conventional sources of energy, right? So why do you want to go for alternate source of energy? What makes you think, shift from one type of energy to the other type of energy? So when you trace out the problems with this, say when I wanted to move from one particular source of energy to other source of energy, either there should be some disadvantages using the present source of energy, or there should be some advantages of the new source of energy from the existing one, whatever I am using. Okay, like if I am shifting from say wood to coal, there should be some advantage in shifting to coal. Either it should be easily transportable compared to wood, or it should be giving more amount of energy compared to per unit mass compared to wood. Okay, so or storing it may be possible. That is maybe one of the reason. Even though little bit higher in price, okay, may not be the too much higher to compromise. Okay, so too much high to be affordable. It may not be too much high, too costly to be affordable. So that I'll be able to afford to coal compared to wood and use coal in a better way than wood. So if that is the comparison is there, then there is a chance that I will go from wood to coal. Similarly, if I have one more advantage or disadvantages in coal and then go for another source of energy where these disadvantages are not there. Like for example, if I am using coal cinders, there are some ash being formed over there. That ash is a waste for me, okay, and it is producing some dust. That ash is getting mixed up in the atmosphere, and it is I am taking in along with the breathing in the ash and other small particles, smoke, which is causing me health hazards. Okay, so then in that case, that means there are some disadvantages over which I am shifting from coal to some other source of energy. Okay, if I wanted to go from say natural gas or petroleum, okay, instead of natural gas, instead of coal, I'll go for petroleum products like petrol or diesel or kerosene. Okay, if I prefer kerosene to say coal, I may be having less amount of smoke produced from kerosene than coal, or it may be liquid form, so I can convert it easily. I'll use a small volume to store equal amount of kerosene, like that. Or I may be having more amount of energy acquired or more amount of heat energy getting from kerosene when compared to coal. So these are all some of the aspects where I move from one particular source of energy to the other source of energy. There should be some benefit in moving from one particular source of energy to the other source of energy. Otherwise, we don't change, right? Same way, when I wanted to go from conventional sources to non-conventional, or I should think on what are the basic problems I am facing from the conventional sources of energy. Like for example, if I take coal, I will get ash, okay, a layer of ash, which is waste for me. Okay, other thing is like, once I use this coal, it is used, that's it. I may not be able to replenish it back. Whatever the source of, if I am using say 1 kg of coal for my domestic purposes, that's it, is used. I cannot retrieve that 1 kg again. It is not possible for me to reuse that same amount of energy or same amount of resource. Clear? So there is one disadvantage. That means once they are used up, they are used, that's it. That is one disadvantage. That means they are exhaustible. So when you list out the problems, what we are getting from, that is one thing is exhaustible. They are exhaustible. Once used, they are used. That's it. That means they cannot be reused. Cannot be reused. So both mean the same almost. We cannot. These sources of energy cannot be reused, or we can say they are exhaustible. That's it. Okay. So when I wanted to cut trees and then use wood as a source of energy, so I may use that wood or trunk of wood for my burning that wood and using it for say 1 week or 10 days, or they might say 15 days, a fortnight. But how much time does it take to produce that equal amount of wood again? It will take some years together. Okay, you wanted to grow a plant to a tree to a stage where I can again cut it and use it for my purposes. It takes some several years. So that is the reason we say it is exhaustible or cannot be reused. So the rate at which I am using it and the rate at which it is being produced again, if these two rates are not matching, okay, then I can say this is exhaustible or it cannot be reused. Okay, it can be replenished. That is one disadvantage. Second thing is they produce a lot of pollution. Pollution in different aspects. I can say water pollution, air pollution, and so on. Okay, environmental pollution, whatever may be the type of pollution, but they are polluting the atmosphere. I use coal or wood, so it pollutes the air. Smoke is produced. Okay, the smoke mixes up with the air, which what we breathe in. So that is disadvantage. So these will cause health hazards. Okay, so these are all the disadvantages. They will produce pollution, they produce dust. So all these are the factors based on which we try to either to modify them, okay, improvise in the technology for using these things, okay, or you go for other source of energy. If I am using say gas, for example, LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. So instead of liquefied petroleum gas, what I try to do is like I'll try to use some other technique where I'll be able to produce gas and then use it for domestic purposes. Okay, so like biogas, for example. So I'll produce gas from bio waste. May it be cow dung or leafy vegetables, leafy wastes or waste from the plants, okay, remnants of the plants, whatever you are using in agriculture, okay, once you use them, whatever the remaining things are there, I dump them and try to produce biogas, okay, so plant waste or animal waste, whatever it is. So thereby I decompose them and then produce gas out of it, which I can use it for my cooking purposes. Okay, so this way I can use some technology to improvise these things, okay, and then use it for modify the same thing, like replace them with different techniques. Okay, so that way I can use it, or else I'll completely move to non-conventional sources of energy. So non-conventional sources of energy like wind can be a non-conventional source of energy, or which is not being used quite from a long time as a traditional. Okay, a new methodology of gaining energy. Okay, but all these and a source of energy may not be fuels. That is one important point to be noted. Okay, like earlier we used to use in thermal power plants petroleum and all these fossil fuels and all these things. But now we use different ways or different sources of energy in power plants to produce electricity. Okay, so let us now go ahead and then discuss what is non-conventional sources of energy. Before discussing further about, I'm going ahead to discuss about non-conventional sources of energy. Okay, we'll try to discuss something like a hydroelectric power plant, and then one more point. So, like we discussed, what is a thermal power plant? In a thermal power plant, we produce steam by burning any conventional sources of energy like wood or coal, something, most preferably coal, and then produces steam to run the turbines and all those things. But when we say hydro power plant, hydro refers to water. Okay, so what happens is, like in this case, we don't use any fuel like coal or other thing to produce steam. Instead of that, we use running water to run the turbines. Basically, power plant is something which generates electricity by making use of turbines. Now it is to decide how to run these turbines, and the turbine is connected to a generator, okay, which produces electricity. So this running of turbine is based on different concepts. Like in thermal power plant, you use steam which is produced by running by boiling water, and this boiling of water is used by burning of wood or coal or something like that. Okay, instead of that, what we do is, to run the turbine, we use the energy of a flowing water. So energy of a flowing water is kinetic energy. So for that purpose, so when I have a generator over here and I have blade set connected to it, I am drawing a rough diagram over there. Okay, this is a blade set, so it's a turbine. This area is a turbine over there. I wanted to run this turbine and then produce electricity. So this is, from this wires are connected like electricity. So this is the generator, and this particular portion is turbine. I need to run this turbine. It's like a small dynamo in a large scale, big size. Okay. So when I want to run this turbine, I'll make use of running water. So when I say running water, water should come through certain height and then flow through it, making the blades to move. That means I need to have water at a height, this much height. I need to maintain water at this height. So when I need to maintain water at this height, I need to construct a dam. Okay, I need to construct a dam wherein the water level is much higher. Okay, this is the reservoir. I'll call it as R. R for reservoir. Okay, so this reservoir, water is stored at a different height, and then to have this water, so this is the wall of the reservoir. Okay, so pretty speaking, we have the wall size like a certain height like this again. Okay, and then so there is a way through which water goes through it here. There is an opening over here. Okay, so I have a gate. So this is the gate, this is the opening. Gate. So this gate can be lifted up so that this water will run through. Okay, so this is the opening over there. We call this gate as the sluice gate. Sluice gate. I open the sluice gate. What happens is this water will flow through. This touches this turbine blades over there, and these turbine blades will rotate. Okay, so let us say it's like this. These turbine blades will rotate, making this generator to produce electricity. So this is in basically how does this particular hydropower plant works. So the sluice gate will be open when water reaches a certain height and say capable of okay, producing this much amount of electricity. They have their calculations, and then accordingly they will be opening the gates. Okay, so this type of reservoirs construction. So to have these hydropower plants, I need to have, this is the wall. Okay, so through the, when the gate is open, to construct this particular type of reservoir over here, there are some other social factors which are taken into consideration. Okay, so one is the geographical area to be considered, and once you wanted to construct a big reservoir for a particular purpose like this, to establish a hydropower plant, okay, there are certain areas where they are prone to be flooded with water over there. They may be dumped in water, submerged under water because of the construction of the reservoir. So people living in those areas should be evacuated. They will have their houses over there, they will have their habitat, living mode of living and everything. So you need to shift the entire members over there. People, whatever, who are the people living over in that particular region, they should be evacuated. So that again give rise to a social economical problem, because the people who are used to live in a particular area, they may not be easily be agreeable to shift to another location, irrespective of whatever the compensation they may be getting over there. Okay, so that is one particular type of problems what we encounter to construct such reservoirs. Okay, so there are certain examples like in one Tehri Dam, and another is Narmada Sardar Sarovar project over river Narmada. So wherein people are asked to evacuate, and then again it leads to controversies. Okay, and then that is one particular thing. And as far as scientifically speaking, okay, scientifically speaking, what are the hurdles we do have? So first of all, whatever the area you wanted to construct, wherever you wanted to construct a reservoir for the construction of a hydropower project, okay, hydropower plant. So there you need to test the soil first, where you wanted to construct the reservoir. So whether it is loose soil or concrete stones or something like that, right? Because if the soil is not fit for construction of a reservoir, this may be resulting in the production of sometimes earthquakes. It may be causing resulting an earthquake over that particular area. Why? Because when water is getting piled up over there in the reservoir, so weight is being accumulated. You know the density of water is nearly 1000 kg per meter cube. Okay, so 1000 kg per meter cube is not a small mass, and the amount of water which will be accumulated in reservoirs is in some TMCs. Okay, it's not a small amount of water. So the weight will be being built up in the reservoir because of the water being accumulated, and that results in the pressure building up at the bottom of the reservoir. So when the bottom portion of the reservoir is not strong enough, there may be some adjustment being taking place within the interior portion of the beds of the reservoir, which will result in earthquakes, what we refer to as reservoir induced earthquakes, RIE. Okay, which is again, it's an artificial earthquake. It's not a natural one, it's an artificial earthquake. It may result in such a damages. Okay, so we need to be very careful, taking all the precautions to construct such reservoirs. That is about a hydropower plant. And something like, again, when I wanted to go for other improvised technologies of producing the same type of fossil, same type of fuels. So another one is like biomass. Biomass and biogas. So biomass is a plant material basically which you are getting from biological media, like you have animal wastes, So cow dung is there, cow dungs, and what do you do with cow dung is like you try to make some cow dung cakes, okay, which you can use directly for heating, and you can directly heat them and produce, burn them and produce heat, okay, for your purposes. Second thing is that is biomass, or you have some plant waste over there. You collect all the plant waste. It's not like the routine, what you call trees, cut wooden tree trunks what you are using directly over there. So all these are the plant waste or the animal waste what you use in the biomass. And also the biogas plants. So biogas plants, what you do is like you set up a gas plant in the area. Preferably this is used in rural areas where you have plenty of input required for the plenty of resources which is used as input for the biogas plant are available over there. Okay, so basically it is the animal waste, cow dung and all those things. Cow dung and water mixed with, you call it as a slurry, and then input into the tank, which you call it as a biogas plant. Okay, and then you allow the material for fermentation. We will call it as anaerobic fermentation in the absence of oxygen. Okay, so when during this anaerobic fermentation, basically the gas is being produced, and this gas is collected over a dome, okay, or the upper portion of the biogas plant, and then that particular gas which is accumulated over there for over a period of time can be taken out using the either a direct connection, pipe connection over there, and then directly supplying from that particular gas plant to your homes, or else you try to collect this gas in a cylinder and then supply that cylinder as usual, like what you are using LPG cylinders. Okay, so these two types what you can have, and once this anaerobic fermentation is done, there is some again something which is remaining at the end bottom of the gas plant, biogas plant. Okay, so what are the remaining thing is there? What is remaining out of after producing this anaerobic fermentation? What are the gas you produce? What are the still waste is there? That you can send it and use it as a manure for your crops. So this is how a biogas plant is considered. If you see a brief structure for this biogas plant, okay, it will be something like a dome over which you have a connection and pipes are there. Okay, so this is the top portion what you are seeing, and in between below the ground, this is the ground level. This is the ground level, and here you have some opening over there wherein you try to input the waste material into it. Okay, so this is the input. So you keep all the mixture of cow dung and water and that all the waste, that is what you call slurry. So basically slurry is being what is produced, input. So this particular tank, this is underground big tank what you construct using a brick wall construction. Okay, so this type of brick wall construction you have. I'm drawing a rough diagram. So this brick wall, and again you have an outlet over here. Okay, so you dump all the waste material over here, slurry is being, and this particular tank is called digestive tank. Okay, this digester tank, what we have is this here, all gas is being produced. So here you have a valve you open the valve once in say a few days. Once you feel that okay, this is what you call a dome type of thing. Like this is what a fixed dome. This dome is a fixed dome. So you cannot move it. So what you do is, this is the pipe material what you have. Okay. And whatever the gas is being collected over here at the top, okay, you open the valve and then let it pass through, and this can be directly connected to your home, your kitchen directly. So whatever the gas is being produced, you can use it directly over there and then for your cooking purposes. This is the basic structure of your biogas plant. Instead of a fixed dome, you may have a floating dome, wherein instead of this you have another facility where you can have a cylinder fixed over there and the gas is collected into it. Okay, now this is not there. Okay, this is the floating dome what you call. So once you floating dome means you have a cylinder connected to the gas plant over there. Once this is completely filled, you replace this with another one. So the floating type. So these two types of gas plants they can produce construct, wherein you have a lot of input material available over there. Okay, this is in brief about the gas plant. So here what is the process taking place inside the digestive tank is like anaerobic fermentation. Anaerobic in the sense absence of oxygen. So fermentation taking place and then gas is being produced. Fermentation taking place in the absence of oxygen. Okay. This is in brief about the biogas plant. So other type of energy what we look for is wind energy. So wind as a form of energy what we are looking for. So how do you define wind? Wind is nothing but moving air. So when air is in motion, its kinetic energy is being transformed into some other form of energy. So when we say energy is being transformed from one form to the other form, okay, so we have one basic law which governs this. We call it as law of conservation of energy. This law states that so energy can be transformed from one form to the other form, but it cannot be destroyed nor created. So we basically say energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but can be converted from one form to another. Okay, so when we say energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but can be converted from one form to the other. So this is what we call law of conservation of energy, and in this law when we say, so then there is no wastage of any energy. There is nothing called energy waste. But why do you in general colloquial terms, why do we say don't waste energy? Okay, so you produce heat, so you ignite a gas stove in a gas burner, and then on the flame you put some amount of say a pressure cooker or something like that, and you cook food. So whatever the energy which is produced in LPG form, okay, is a chemical form that you are igniting, burning it, okay, and it is producing heat. Okay, so a chemical form of LPG is converted to heat form of energy. Okay, energy in chemical form, which is LPG, is converted to heat form of by burning it. Okay, so that heat is being transferred to the cooking material, and then you are cooking the items. So those cooked items you are taking in and you are getting energy. Fine. So in this process, now the question comes like, if that is the case, like energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but can be converted from one form to the other form, very clear. But thing is like, are we getting the total amount of energy being converted from one form to the other form? Okay, that is a question. When you heat a particular items in a pressure cooker, putting them on a flame, whatever the heat is being produced by burning the LPG, are we getting equal amount of heat supplied to the items in the cooker? That is one thing. So, if that is the case, is there no escape of heat to the surroundings? So, if there is an escape to the surroundings, where is that escaped heat gone to? Okay. So, to be frankly speaking, it is not the total amount of energy heat produced from burning that LPG being transformed to the items or contents in the cooker. Some part of the heat which is generated by burning LPG is absorbed by the surroundings. So you feel the warmth over there. When you place your hands near the surroundings area, you feel the warmth. Okay. So this produced a transformed form of energy. You feel your warmth. Okay. So it cannot be reproduced back to the useful purposes. Do you get my point? So it cannot be transformed back into useful purposes. So in this particular context, what you call useful purpose, you use the word wastage of energy. Okay. Truly speaking, from physics point of view, yes, this law is valid. Wherein in colloquial forms, when you say the energy is transmitted from one form to the other form, converted from one form to the other form, in the process of conversion from one form to the other form, it may not be 100% be convertible into the form what you desire. So some other form may be some part of the energy can be taken into some other form. Like you explode a bomb, chemical energy is being used to convert it into heat, light and sound. Okay. So one-way conversion to three forms. Chemical energy ignited, okay, it is exploding. When it's exploding, we have the heat, sound and light. A part of it is converted to light, a part of it, a major portion of it is converted to sound and pressure rise, like that, and heat also. Like you cannot get back those forms to be converted into a bomb again. You cannot catch hold of that sound energy, you cannot catch hold of that light energy which is given out, or you cannot catch hold of that heat energy. Combine all those three forms and then again produce this reversibility. That reversibility is not possible. So it is in such a colloquial situation where you use the term wastage of energy or not being properly utilized. Okay. But frankly speaking, law of conservation of energy holds good. When it comes to the wind form of energy, moving air, so use a device called windmill. Okay, where you have some blades attached to the windmill. So it is an erection over there. So this moving wind will rotate the blades, and then you have a mechanism over there, convert that into a turbine and then produce electricity. Okay, this is the symbol what I use for electricity, fine. So this is where you can use it. So converting wind energy to mechanical energy and mechanical energy to electrical energy by using a turbine. This way we can use. The other forms of energy are there, which we are going to non-conventional sources of energy that we will discuss shortly. Basically, the different types of non-conventional sources of energy what we use is like say solar energy, okay, energy from the sea, and we have our ocean thermal energy, and we have geothermal energy, and we have nuclear energy. Basically, when we speak about solar energy, we have different devices. How do we convert it into normal usage purposes? So, when we consider solar energy, like the normal things what we use is like, say, solar cookers, and we have solar cell or panel. When I say solar cookers, we have two types. One is the box type, another is reflector type. So, solar cookers. In the box type, what we have is like, we have a box which is coated inside black. Okay, so the black coating is for letting or absorbing more amount of heat and light. Okay, and on the it's like a cuboidal box. It's like a cuboidal box wherein okay, so you have a lid over there, and at the top of it you have a glass cover. So this lid has a mirror, a plain mirror attached to it. So what we do is we will expose this lid, we'll tilt it, we'll keep it tilted at an angle so that the sunlight will directly be incident on the mirror, gets reflected, and this will be taken by the inside material inside the particular thing. And we have a glass lid, a plain glass lid over there. So the purpose of the plain glass lid is that once it takes the sun rays inside it, so they are relatively shorter wavelength. Okay, so when the thermal rays from the sun, thermal infrared, what we call, okay, thermal rays, rays which carry the heat. Okay, once they are taken into it, the interior content, inside contents of the particular box, they'll get heated up, and the wavelength increases for them. So once the wavelength is increased, this glass lid will not allow the this particular heat energy to escape outside. Okay, so that is the purpose of this glass lid. Okay, it will not allow the heat to escape through outside, being a bad conductor of heat also. So this is how this box type of solar cooker works. So interior portion of the box is painted with black so as to absorb large amount of heat. Okay, other type of reflector is there, solar reflector type is there. So what we have is I'm drawing the cross section over here. This is like a concave reflector. Either you can use a single glass or a multiple different mirrors you use and arrange them such a way it forms a concave shape over there, and at the focus point, at the principal focus, you keep the items over there. You make an arrangement so that you'll be able to suspend the cooking items at this particular place. So all the light rays, a parallel beam of light, so after reflection, what will happen is, like we have studied in reflection and refraction, so all the light rays will pass through this particular focus. So what will happen is, the entire sun rays are focused at this point and then produces a lot of heat energy over there. So whatever the cooking items you place it over there will get cooked up easily, faster. Okay, so this is in outline about solar reflector types. This is a concave reflector. Okay, that way you'll use this. Other type of using the solar energy is like solar cells. it is like a photovoltaic cells what you use. Okay, so it is photovoltaic cell is like a diode. Okay, diodes and triodes and other electronic devices you will learn them in higher classes. But basically a photovoltaic cell, a solar light is incident on it, and whatever the heat energy, whatever the light energy is there, it is getting trapped and converted into energy, to be frankly speaking. And then when you say solar panel, different types of cells arranged in order, okay, so as to have addition of energy. Like you take two dry cells, add one of them one to the other in series, you have a higher voltage, right? Similarly, a number of solar cells added one to the other, make them in series combination so as to get a higher output. That is what you call solar panel. The other way what you use solar energy is like solar heaters to produce heat energy. You want to use hot water for your bathing purposes, use the solar heaters over there. There also you will have a glass surface coated with black, and through which that particular panel, you have the water pipes passing through, and then whatever the cold water is being circulated, it becomes hot over there. Okay, the basic principle is based on this particular type of black material being painted. Okay, you don't have the mirror over there, okay, to trap the solar energy, but that particular complete setup is exposed to sun, and whatever the water pipelines are there, water pipelines will be passing through the particular glass panel, inside coated with the black, and then water being circulated will become hotter over there. That is how you use solar energy for heaters also. You call them as solar heaters. So that is one non-conventional source of energy. Ultimately, solar energy is the ultimate source of energy. For whatever the different forms of energy, whatever are available, ultimate source of energy is the sun. Next one is energy from the sea. Energy from the sea, when you discuss, we have two types where you can extract energy. One is either through tidal energy or energy from waves. Okay, concept is same in both of them, where you have a tides is near the shore, okay, and waves is little bit interior into the seas. So what happens is, whenever you are getting in tide and out tide, in tide is tide coming towards the shore, so there you build something like a small reservoir type. Okay, so if you think that tides are coming this way, water is coming this way, so here you make an arrangement where there is a turbine over there, and then this is a generator. So it is connected to the producing. So whenever tides, in tide is there, in tide. So this in tide, when water is in tide, so this particular turbine will move over there, and once the water is reaching over there, for out tide, that means for the water to recede away, you have a separate way to go out, so as this particular turbine is not revolving in the other way, it is not the same path. So making use of this in tide and out tide, because tides are never ending, tide formation is never ending, so you have continuous movement of tides over there. So this generator or a turbine will be continuously moving and then producing the electricity. This is one form. Similar concept we will use it in waves. So waves is little bit inside. Okay, very much similar concept. You use it in little bit deep into the ocean, and then you use the formation of waves. Waves are formed because of the uneven pressure over the surface of the water over the air pressure. Because of difference in the air pressure, waves are being formed and movement. So this kinetic energy of the moving water in the form of waves is being used to generate electricity using the turbines. Coming to next form is like ocean thermal energy. When you say different layers of ocean, so there is a temperature difference. You make use of this temperature difference to generate a heat energy, and then you use it for some useful, convert it from to use some useful purposes. That is how ocean thermal energy is being utilized. Say for cubic feet, or sorry, 1 or 200 meters or 300 meters, or some difference in depth. So there will be an approximate difference of say 3 to 4 degrees temperature, and make use of that difference in temperature, extract that heat, and then use it for some purposes, useful purposes. That is how ocean thermal energy is being utilized. Coming to geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is the heat energy inside the earth. So there are some hot spots inside at different places inside the earth. So wherever there are hot spots are over there, so there you extract that heat from those hot spots or hot springs to convert that into useful forms using turbines or some other process way to produce electricity and some other form of energy. That is what you call geothermal energy. Heat energy from the interior of the earth is being extracted. Okay, and last one is like nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is also a form of energy where you try to use a process called nuclear fusion. Okay, nuclear fusion. So in nuclear fusion, what happens is it is a phenomenon, nuclear process where hydrogen is being combined to form helium plus release of energy. So this energy is thermal energy, okay, where you can convert hydrogen. It is not the native hydrogen, it is the isotopes of hydrogen what you are using over there, deuterium H12, okay. So combine hydrogen and then to form helium is basically the nucleic process, okay, thereby release of amount of energy. So as far as nuclear processes are considered, there are two different types of nuclear phenomenon, nuclear reactions being taking place. So this is what you call nuclear fusion reaction, where you are combining them. Combining, fusing is combining. So hydrogen is being combined. Other process is what you call fission, nuclear fission. So nuclear fission is splitting up of heavy nuclei into smaller thing. In the fission process, you have uranium as a fuel, we will call it as a nuclear fuel. So that nuclear fuel is being heavy nucleus is being split into lighter nuclei using a fission process. Okay, you are using 3 neutrons or 3 protons over there, and then say using 3 neutrons hitting a heavy nuclei, it is being split into 2 different nuclei, and thereby again releasing 3 more neutrons, which further use in next fission process. And apart from this, release of energy. This goes like a chain reaction, because every reaction there are 3 neutrons being released over there, and these 3 neutrons again being used in other 3 fission processes. So every time it is multiplying 3 times, and this is like a chain reaction. But the thing is, like, every time you don't use all the 3 neutrons which are being released in every fission for the next process. Use only one or 2 neutrons. They will capture the other neutrons. Again, this process is completely used in a nuclear power plant. In a nuclear power plant, you use the fission process. Okay. Whereas in the sun, okay, solar energy is being released by using hydrogen converting to helium. This is a fusion process. Okay. So in the nuclear power plant, you are regulating the process of fission and then harnessing that nuclear energy into some other form of energy, heat energy, and then converting it into electricity. Okay, nuclear power plants. There is a regulatory process over there. But as of now, whatever the process is being undertaken in the sun or other stars, because of which you are getting solar energy, that is a fusion process. But so far our scientists did not arrive at a conclusion like how to generate or how to produce a regulated fusion process to harness that energy and then use it in purposes, using for different other purposes. Okay, So these are the non-conventional sources of energy: solar energy, energy from the sun, ocean thermal energy, geothermal energy, and nuclear energy. All these are the different non-conventional sources of energy. Hope they are clear.